Okay, so hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here today. We have such a exciting session planned for all of you. Before we begin, we want to thank each and every one of you for taking the time out of your day to be here with us today. Today, we are joined by some very special guests from the Salesforce side. We will do formal introductions in just a moment. However, for today's session, we will cover how client-facing teams at Salesforce use Miro truly for their end-to-end client engagements, whether that's conducting a discovery on a use case, building out an architecture diagram, or simply brainstorming with your client. We are going to see quite a few examples of it. As for the agenda, so we will do formal introductions, and then we will truly spend the majority of the time diving into these real life use cases, hearing from the experts. We will do this in a question and answer format. And then we will definitely be sure to leave time for questions in the end for all of you. So with that, let's start with some introductions, and let's also make it fun with a quick fun fact. So as you introduce yourself, please also let us know your go-to guilty pleasure when you're out at the store grocery shopping. I can start us off. I will then pass it off to Brad, and then we can go Jaydeep and Stefan. So with that, hello everyone, I am Taram Fraz. I'm a solution engineer here at Miro, and my role really is to work with companies to help them find the most value in our platform. And my go-to guilty pleasure is cookie dough ice cream, or truly cookie dough anything. I cannot stay away from it. Over to you, Brad.
Thank you. So my name is Brad Weiger. I'm also on the solutions engineering team here at Miro. Excited to be here today to participate. And I'm kind of in a post-LaCroix phase of my life. So when I need a refreshing beverage, I reach for a Topo Chico. That's my guilty pleasure.
Nice.
JD, I'll hand it off to you, Tom.
Thank you, Brad. Hello, everyone. My name is Jaydeep Tejas. I go by JD. I'm a technical architect here at Salesforce. It's a pre-sales role, so a lot of customer interactions. And I'll talk more about it when we get to my section. But my go-to guilty pleasure would be instant noodles in really any form, cup noodles or packs or anything. I know they are bad for me. They are high in sodium and all that, but hey, they are tempting and tasty, right? So I cannot stay away from them. Yeah, thank you, Stefan.
Yeah, good thing that it's no longer lunchtime here in the East Coast, so because I'm getting hungry. But yeah, I'm Stefan Cepeda here. I am a technical architect at Salesforce. Similar to Jaydeep, I'm in front of customers most of my time, having really tough technical conversations. So today I'll share how Miro helps me in that journey, and a little bit of my background. I actually used to be a Salesforce customer for 7 years. I used to be an architect and a developer. And now I get to do best practices sessions with my customers. So really excited to be here. And my go-to guilty pleasure is sour gummy worms. That one's a little leftover from my teenage years, as you can probably figure out. But, you know, sometimes I succeed on not buying them. So
sometimes. That's good. Yeah, you guys got the salty sweet combo. My mouth is watering. That's a great transition into the first question I'd love to pose to you. So you talked about, these reviews being quite challenging. Would love for you to elaborate on that a little bit more. What are some of the common challenges when it comes to collaboration that you sort of see show up?
Yeah, maybe I can get us started then. I think in my mind is two main things, especially in this virtual world. Is one, how do you collaborate with my customers, especially in a virtual environment, right? Before we used to just be there in person, actually pulling a whiteboard and jot things down, diagram. But now we have to accommodate for getting that same collaboration feeling just with a virtual setting. So my challenge is how do I keep people engaged, right? Having things like we did today, like an icebreaker, getting people talking and getting them immersed in the virtual experience. So having that collaboration ingredient is definitely something that has been a challenge for me. But maybe Jaydeep, do you want to chime in on from your side?
Yeah, sure. And you touched upon one of the points I was going to talk about is the engagement part of it, right? But then I also like when we have conversations with customers, we like them to contribute as well, right? How do we make sure they are doing that? So we make sure, like in this case, we make sure we share the board sooner. Can they create their sticky notes while they are thinking about it? Is it too much pressure on having an individual scribe, or can we crowdsource the scribing, right? Can we make sure the notes and sheets are not getting created for complex ideas? We are actually representing it more visually, putting in shapes, sticky notes, and things like those. So I think that helps a lot, and we have come a long way from how it used to be 2 decades ago, where you'd have 7 whiteboards in a room and people would stick sticky notes and take parking lot items separate and things like those. So I think we have come a long way, but there's always a need for a very creative tool that helps everyone contribute in addition to staying engaged.
Love it. Yeah, thanks for sharing. So that sounded like the challenges around, active engagement on the customer side, giving them an opportunity to contribute. That those are some common challenges that we hear. So thank you for sharing. I was wondering, when it comes to the sharing in advance, do you find that most customers are willing to engage in that way if you kind of meet them where they're at, or maybe meet them more than halfway of making sure they know the medium in which they can contribute?
Do you want to take that one, Stefan?
Yeah, I can take a first pass. Yeah, I think
no, go for it.
Most of my, especially since I've started using, for example, the Google Meet integration, I've seen that most of my customers are find it way easier to contribute, especially because it's easier. They get a pop-up, they can to open the board. Sometimes they don't even need an account. So it's just it's easier for them to get started. And yeah, most of my customers like to put stickies, and sometimes we have to add a timer, and we get into other things like, okay, let's keep the scope of ideas to what we're talking about. So for sure. But JD, what has been your experience?
Yeah, I think a lot of customers are willing to join the boards sooner. We send out the invites to make sure we are sharing them on Slack and things like those. There are some corner cases where people are on the go. Maybe they cannot, do anything while in the meeting. They take notes in Google Sheets or Google Docs. That's where I think the Google integration makes a lot of sense. I know Stefan talked about Google Meet, but in general, copying slides into Miro and creating pages out of it, or just copying a bunch of row items from a Google Sheet and creating sticky notes just by pasting it, right? So things like those are really, really helpful. And I think people are willing to, if they don't want access to Miro for some reason, they will create these offline content and then we can use them readily.
Awesome.
That is super helpful to hear. And first of all, I want to empathize with what you both originally said when it comes to the challenges, when it comes to collaboration. We hear that across various different companies. And both of you touch a little bit on this already, but would you mind just sharing some examples of how you use Miro today to address some of these challenges?
Yeah, absolutely. Do we want to maybe share some? Yeah, do we want to should we share some boards? I think
please do.
We're getting some real life examples. I'm excited.
All right. I'll go first if you don't mind, Stefan.
Yeah, go for it.
Please share my screen. Let me know if you can see it.
Yes, we can.
Perfect. And so let me, before I go deeper into this, right, and don't worry, I will zoom in as needed, right? This is a kind of a lot of content, but this is our template that we use for a lot of customers. So we as TAs are one of the first technical phases our prospective customers see, right? And our job early on is to understand customer needs, talk about Salesforce capabilities, specifically around integrations, security, app development, and really anything related to architecture, right? So as you would imagine, there's a lot of engagement. And diagramming becomes very important. It's an essential tool that we use. And being a visual person, I can truly understand how much helpful that is, right, in the process. So diagrams, flowcharts, mind map, they bring clarity. And, it's amazing how much you can do in a 1-hour session versus, having 6-hour sessions and not getting anywhere with a lot of text and notes. So for this one here, we use this board for a very high-level discovery across opportunities and mapping these cards, these functions to business processes, right? So this is a very collaborative session. So we ensure all participants have access to these Miro boards before they go in real time. They can update this while in the meeting. But really, you can see all these all these sticky notes are really created internally first. We copy them from Google Sheets, for example, and effectively share it with over Slack with the customers as well. We then go a step further, start mapping them around into the business value map. And again, I won't go into too many details here, but it maps to the objectives and the metrics. And then we pick one to dive deeper into, right? And that's where I'm going to present this to make it easier. And again, hey, this is all frames, right? So that's the other good thing that you can create presentations out of it. So what you see here is all the sticky notes come together when we start talking about a specific opportunity, go into details, and this is where the brainstorming and elaboration power is, right? We found this technique great when we would agree on specific criteria. Like at the top, you will see that we have specific criteria for that objective of the use case, right? And then what we do is all the participants in that meeting have their own swim lanes. They can create their own sticky notes while in the meeting, keep adding their notes, keep creating functions, keep creating use cases. And then at the end of it, we start talking about the ideas that were generated, start combining it in logical units. So if you see down, if I keep scrolling, sorry, I need to go out of this mode 1 second here. And if you keep scrolling, you can see that there are more frames with tags and labels on them. So the reason why we do that is they are now combined into specific categories, and we want to make sure that they are easily searchable, and there could be overlapping functions. So this helps us, keep a good inventory of all of those. And then from there, it just goes into, goes further, sorry about that, goes further into capability gathering. Again, they get narrowed down into specific groups for capabilities. We put them into high, medium, lows for prioritization. And then eventually we map it to the business process map. Again, this is very similar to how any product would do it. But this covers all the bases, make sure that you're not missing anything there. So that's a very high level overview. Again, not trying to go into any details, but that's the template that we use. About a 2-hour workshop is what we target for this. And then there are a lot of action items that we take out of this. But that's the overall idea, if that made sense.
Yeah, and Jaydeep, I have a quick question because actually I'm still a little new to labels, and I do see you use labels a lot. Like what kind of benefits do you get from labeling like those sticky notes?
Yeah, like I said, there could be some process priorities that are defined, which you would like to attach to the categories. And again, this eventually goes into systems like Jira or anything else that you are using, right? But for the focus of brainstorming, you would like to quickly search something. So I can just put that label in search and reach the exact frame where the categories are created, right? So the benefit is searchability, and then making sure that you are covering all the avenues.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I guess if I was building a read back or getting my ideas together to kind of present back, I think that would be pretty useful, right? Like just searching labels, finding like what does a customer think about, I don't know, MDM, and then getting all the relevant sticky notes. That would be pretty cool. Definitely have to use labels more.
Right. Yeah. Labels and frames, right? I'm a fan of frames. I always start with the frame in a blank board, right? And the reason why frames are awesome is, one thing is you can present them, right? So they literally become slides in a presentation. Customers can focus on specific content instead of getting distracted by looking at all the other things on the board. And then it doesn't stop there, right? It gives you navigation between all those things, even if the boards are, the frames are arranged specifically in the board. And then I can update and modify while within the presentation mode. So how cool is that, right? So you don't have to step out of the mode to add a new mind map item, or add a new card to the existing visual. One more benefit that I have been very crazy about is how you can export frames into PDF or an image, right? It's very quick to share, very easy to send out to someone who is not looking at the Miro board. So I think that's amazing. And we usually templatize this. So this is a board that was filled, but we have blank boards where architects can just make a copy of it and start in a meeting.
Yeah, we definitely don't want to start from scratch.
Yep.
Yeah. I think that reuse cycle is so important because that's what continues the collaboration. JD, do you ever find yourself in an asynchronous loop where maybe not everyone can make it to the meeting, and then you have your clients or team members leaving comments on the board, maybe creating a talk track, just to keep that collaboration going as you go through some of these workshops?
No, definitely. And I should have mentioned that. So this first phase is mostly internal, right? The customer is not involved yet. And this is where, account A's and solution engineers, they are contributing to this offline before the meeting. So we create the board in advance, like a week before the meeting, and then we start contributing to it. We have something in place by the time we have an internal touch point, right? So yeah, we do offline collaboration a lot. The first step is always that, and then we go into customer meetings.
Makes meetings more productive, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Yep.
And then Stefan, you had a few examples as well. Is that right?
Yeah. Maybe I can share another one. It could be more of what we would consider an output for a customer, because I think that's a really good example of how we would drive a discovery meeting. And a lot of these boards really sometimes play both roles. But maybe I can share something around output, because I was excited to use the Salesforce Shape Pack, which actually saves me a lot of time. So maybe that could be a good place to go next.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, let's do it. So first of all, as Jaydeep was saying, we have templatized versions of the most common engagements we run, right? We talked about all the things technical architects talk about in Salesforce. I don't want to take credit of this specific template. One of my colleagues, Maya Peterson, actually put it together, but it really helps us drive an output diagram to help our customers understand, for example, in this case, how they build in Salesforce, right? We talk about application lifecycle management all the time. And as you can see, it can get pretty complex. So just having a good way to have a very clear view of a complex process is really one of the big takeaways of having a diagramming tool in the first place, right? So a couple of things I guess I will call out is, as you can see, this could get complex. So one thing that I like using a lot during these types of sessions, even while walking a customer through it, is the built-in timers. I think it's a good problem to have, but really like having a lot of engagement just needs to be reined in sometimes. And it just makes it really easy. Sometimes even just picking a nice music tone to like put sticky notes and drive that engagement. The other exciting thing, and I know this is fairly new, so I do want to show maybe the audience about the Salesforce Shape Pack. So I used it in a couple of places here because we understand Salesforce maybe might not be the entire picture of your application lifecycle management process, but it's definitely in a lot of places. So a cool thing that was added pretty recently was the shape pack that allow us, at least me, save a lot of time through adding, for example, very quick visual logos and cards of where Salesforce is being used, so that as you look at this diagram, you can very quickly see, okay, Salesforce is involved here and here. For example, we're using Jira or Excel spreadsheets. And then as I do my read back, I can quickly show visually, okay, these are places you could improve, for example. Other things that I'll show maybe just for anyone that hasn't seen the shape packs, I live on the Salesforce world all the time. So we do have other icons, things like analytics, right? Where do you run analytics context? And it just makes it a little easier, again, to visually see where specific things are engaged and involved here. It just makes it easy to drive those sets of outputs. Let me see. I just want to kind of like double down on one last thing, if I may. I don't know how I'm doing on time. I think I have a couple of minutes.
Good. Keep going.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's just I think I mentioned it in the beginning, but the Google Meet integration was something that I've been using more often nowadays. Basically, as you can see, as I'm sharing a diagram, sometimes when you're driving a meeting with a lot of participants, it might be easier for everyone to get access to the board and get a reminder link as you jump into the Google Meet meeting. So one thing that I like is that you get a pop-up and you just have to, as a participant, click click on the link, and then you'll get to the board. And the other thing for me as a technical architect driving the meeting is that I can have my participant list on the right side. I can have my board embedded, and I don't have to like jump in between windows. So that is kind of like a good pro of using some of those types of integrations.
That's great. Yeah, one theme I kind of heard in both of how you were describing how you're using Miro. So JD, you called out frames as something that, start with a blank board, but truly start with the frame. And Stefan, the way you talked about the timer, I think those are two great examples of intentionally setting some boundary. And I really commend how you've been able to do that. I find that can be one of the most challenging things for people who maybe are new to Miro, that infinite canvas may feel like you get dropped in the middle of the ocean, and being able to intentionally create some boundary, whether it's visual in the space or a timer to focus attention and action on certain collaborative activities, can be really, really helpful. So I'm learning a lot just hearing the way you guys are talking about how you conduct your work, and I'm already taking mental notes of how I want to bring this back to my day-to-day. So I just wanted to call out that I'm really impressed how you guys figured that out for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just a quick question, talking about notes, right? So Stefan, I know you have a way of taking notes while in the meeting, comments on specific shapes. Do you want to talk about that quickly?
Yeah, for sure. So I have maybe one or two comments in this board, but basically, whenever I'm on a meeting, again, it could be a lot of participants at one time. So as some of my participants don't want to add stickies directly and would just, for example, tell me about a specific topic or expect me to add the sticky myself. I have no problem with doing that. And a lot of times I use comments to help me either write reminders of someone that I need to talk about, that specific box. It just gives me basically a shape level of detail on how to follow up on that specific item, so that I just don't end up with 1,000 stickies and nowhere to go from there. It just helps me drive action and say, okay, maybe JD, can you help me dig deep into this one? Or sometimes it's even a comment to myself. It's just like, hey, don't forget to do this other specific action. So it just helps me, for lack of a better word, take notes at that specific level. I also take other types of notes, but it just gives me that shape level types of follow-up items. So yeah, that's a good call out.
Cool. No, thank you.
Yeah.
And yeah, I know we are almost time, but there are a couple of questions. So talking about the latter one is what I will take first. Any ideas on how to visualize an opportunity solution tree? I don't understand the exact context of the question, but if it's really about the architecture and the products that Salesforce offers and how they connect to each other, yeah, there are a lot of resources online that you could find about product trees, product maps, and then you could, start mapping those, import them in Miro, and then start mapping those to the solutions that you're discussing, right? So that's the first one. And Stefan, feel free to jump in if you have any more comments there. But quickly addressing the second one, how to get access to these diagrams. There's a lot of content here that we may need to scrub before sending out, but yeah, we can make sure that we have a templatized version that is blank canvas that you can start with. So I'll make sure I share that with Miro team, and that can be forwarded further.
Awesome. And if you haven't already, whoever that question came from, checked out the Miroverse. I encourage you to. There are thousands of templates, probably not as good as these, but still very good, that are out there.
Maybe we can launch some of these on the Miroverse. That would be great.
Yeah. All right, I think we should probably conclude. We're going to get cut off in 1 minute. So thank you so much again for your time, for everyone joining us, but most importantly for JD and Stefan. Really appreciate it. Contact us on LinkedIn. What else, Tarm? Can we bring it home?
Yes, please feel free to reach out with any questions. And again, thank you everyone for your time. This was really great.